highest aspiration that a people can ever have. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. If in 250 years we're gone, and maybe we're gone for 10 minutes or 250 years, dig those words back up, because it's the greatest thing man could ever do.
You brave souls. We have an ambulance waiting for you in about 20 minutes. It's great to be here because I can finally say, yeah, I spoke at the National Mall and it was standing room only. There were only 25 chairs, but standing room only. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this and coming out and to hear us speak and to celebrate our nation. It's a remarkable thing to be here for the 250th anniversary of our nation. I wish it was a little cooler, but this is exactly the way it was in the room when the founders, except, you ready for this? They were wearing wool and wigs, and there was no deodorant. So I think we actually have it better than they did. I want to share a couple of things with you. Check, 1, 2. Check, there we go. I want to share a couple of things. This is honestly the greatest gift that was given to me on American history, because I have never been able to defend Thomas Jefferson. There's even a book out called The American Sphinx about Thomas Jefferson. And he's a very complex man. And how do you listen to a man say all men are created equal who had slaves? And I could excuse some of it because he was wildly in debt. You couldn't sell anything. You couldn't get rid and release slaves because that's property. The bank wasn't going to let you get rid of the property. So he's somewhat explainable there. And then I found this document. This is the first draft of the Declaration of Independence in Thomas Jefferson's own hand. And if you could see up close, here it says B. Franklin, J. Adams, where they made changes to the original document. This is him alone in a room, all by himself, no books, nothing. He's coming from Virginia. He doesn't think that this is really going to be something that lasts. He thinks he's writing a committee report at the time. So he's wanting to go home. His wife is really ill. He hasn't heard from her. His mother has just passed. He wasn't going to be there at the last minute. He gets there and John Adams says, you have to write it. So he writes it. And he writes, the first part is saying something that no other revolutionary document had ever said, ever before. Most revolutionaries, and we know this because we're living in a time of revolution all around the world. Most revolutionaries say what? They start with, you did this. I got to take this from you because you. And so it starts with punishment. It starts with anger and vitriol. Ours doesn't. This is the very first document in all of human history about revolution that starts with the people, our founders, and ends with the same people. Usually a revolutionary, they start and then it morphs and people are beheaded and killed and everything else, and then it ends with something else. That's because this document starts the way it does. It starts humble. It starts quiet. It says, when in the course of human events, one party has to separate from another, we owe it to the people, we owe it to you, the king, we owe it to the world to explain why we're going to separate, why we can't do this together. Remember, the war is already going. It's been going for a year. American bodies have already been buried by the king. The king already has ships in all the harbors. He has soldiers killing Americans, and most Americans don't want the war. The year before, we sent out an article to the king that said it's an olive branch. Please Just stop killing us. Just do a few things. We want to be your citizen. We want to be your loyal subject. And he wouldn't even read it. So they had no choice. The war was already on. But what they wanted to do was say, this is why we're separating. This is why. One last chance. We want you to understand. We're not like you. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That's the second paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident. You don't understand it this way. We believe that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator. You don't believe that all men are created equal. You're the king. We're your subject. That's just the way it is because God gave you that right, not me. We believe all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, unchangeable. No one can change them. No government, no king, no one can take these rights. And among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's changed. He was going to put life, liberty, and property. Why didn't he put property? Because of slaves. Slaves were property. So we would have automatically canceled out that argument. We would have automatically, by putting property, you would have given everybody who wanted a slave the right to say, it's in our founding document, this is property. So they change it to the pursuit of happiness. And governments are instituted among men. Why? Nobody thought this way. Nobody thought this way. Governments are instituted among men to protect those rights. And if a government ever becomes hostile to those rights, it is the right and the duty of that citizen, the right and the duty of that citizen to overthrow those chains and, there's not a period there, and replace it with a government more likely to protect those rights. So this whole thing was set up to protect the rights. This is a revolutionary idea. Nobody had ever vocalized this ever before in history. It's a completely different idea. And then at the end of the page here, then it gets into what's called the usurpations. These are the things that every revolutionary does. Every revolutionary says, and you did this, and you did that. These are the things that the king had done to the Americans, that they said, please stop injuring us. We're your loyal subjects. So beginning here, and they're 1 or 2 lines maximum each. It's just a laundry list of you did this, you did this, you did this. We asked you to stop doing this, you did this. Until you get here, the usurpations, 1 line to 2 lines each, 1 line to 2 lines each, and this half page, over half a page, is the last usurpation. This is where the greatest gift of history comes in. This is where you will understand Thomas Jefferson. Remember, he's writing this alone, by himself. And you can see in it, his handwriting changes. He's passionate about it, and it's personal to him. He writes here, and the king has waged a cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. This piratical warfare. Who were the pirates at the time? The Barbary pirates. If you had to, in a modern way, explain who the Barbary pirates were, who were they?
Muslims.
They were Islamists. They believed that they could take you as a slave because if you're not Muslim, you're an infidel. So I can take you, I can rape you, I can kill you, I can sell you and your children into slavery. I can do whatever I want. Here Thomas Jefferson is saying this piratical warfare is the warfare, and he prints the word and underlines, the warfare of the Christian king of Great Britain. He's now mocking him. He's now saying, how dare you call yourself a Christian? Christians don't do that. This is the work of a Christian king of Great Britain. He goes on to say, who is determined to keep an open market where men, capitalized, where men are to be bought and sold. He capitalizes men. Why would he do that? There's only 3 words in the Declaration of Independence that are capitalized or printed. United States America. 3. He's just printed Christian, and he's printed and capitalized, the only one in the document capitalized all 3 letters, men. Why? Because he wanted the king to know, remember what we said on page 1? All men are created equal, and that is a man. That is not a slave. That is a man, and we declare it here and now. This must end. That's what he's saying. And he goes on, and this becomes very, very personal to him. He goes on to say, the king has suppressed every legislative attempt to prohibit or restrain this commerce. This is where it's personal. In 1769, Thomas Jefferson in Virginia tries to pass a law to emancipate every slave. In 1769, did you know that? How come we're not taught that? Who has stolen my history? Why must we spend our whole life learning lies? In 1769, Thomas Jefferson, the man who said all men are created equal, said emancipate every slave in Virginia. He says, but he stopped us. This is personal to Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson becomes this giant to stop slavery. Now, one last fact on this. Why is this not in our declaration? Why is it not in the final draft right across the street? Why is it not in the final draft? Yes, why? No, not out of fear of losing the Southern States support. No. What? The economy kind of, yes, here's what happened. There's one word missing here at the beginning. This does not say a unanimous declaration. When they first started writing this, John Hancock set up, we have to have this unanimous. We have to have every hand up. Every state must vote for this. Because if not, if one state, France is not going to help us. If 8 states, if 8 colonies say we're a country, no, there are 13 colonies. We need all 13. So, first vote. Do we all want to sign our death warrant? Do we want to come up with something that proves that we are traitors to the crown? Every hand went up. Now, once we write it, every word has to be voted on. Thomas Jefferson was beside himself. Has anybody's ever written anything or done anything and then had a committee come in and try to take it all apart and tell you what's wrong with it? That's Thomas Jefferson for a couple of days as they're voting on everything. They get to this part. Out of 13 colonies, only 2 colonies vote against it. Only 2. Georgia and South Carolina. That means 11 of our colonies said, end slavery today. Where is that fact in our history books? That stops people cold when they're saying, we were founded on slavery. No, we were not. If you look at New England as a country, I know you can't, but if you could, they had abolished slavery long before. It was against the Pilgrims. When the Pilgrims came, you could not man-steal. In fact, did you know that our Pilgrims, when a slave ship washed onto shore accidentally, you could smell a slave ship a million miles away. They knew exactly what it was. And the Pilgrims, they boarded the ship and arrested the captain. They freed the people on the ship, fed them, nursed them back into health, got another captain that they raised money amongst themselves, paid them, and said, take them back home. We've been lied to. We've been lied to. And we could be mad about it, or we could share this information with everybody we know. We could teach the truth. This document is available online. It's everywhere. Just look up original draft of the Declaration of Independence in Thomas Jefferson's hand. First draft. And share it and teach it with everyone you know. The American story is so unbelievably glorious. I hated history when I was growing up. I hated it. I hated it because it's all about names and dates. I don't care about the names. I don't care about the dates. Tell me the story. They have robbed us of our story, and without human beings are story driven. You lose your way in life if you don't know the story. Who are you? Where did you come from? What are you trying to accomplish? What was your family trying to accomplish? What was your family about? That's why family history is so important. Know who you are. My life changed when I found out that I had two great uncles that fought in the Civil War on the northern side, and both of them ended up in Andersonville, one of the most notorious. It was like a Nazi concentration camp. Most people died. It was a horrible place. I learned two things. Wow, the Becks were losers all the way along. They were out for like 2 weeks and captured. One of them died there, one of them didn't. His wife said he was never the same. He died sickly, but it meant something to me. It meant that somebody in my family, when the chips were down, stood up. So now the chips are down. Am I going to sit down? Or am I going to do my family proud and stand up? Because somebody in my family will look back and say, you know, my great uncle, he did this. That's our job. I want to share one more document. This is one of my favorite. This is Mad Anthony Wayne. And I don't know officially why they called him Mad Anthony Wayne, but he was a general on our side. And I can tell you that just this story, I'd call him Mad Anthony Wayne. Mad Anthony Wayne, we were trying to win an important battle and win the fort at Stony Point. And Stony Point, we are fighting the British, and we're just scrappy. We are just a scrappy group of farmers against these mercenaries that have fought wars on different continents and this really well-trained army. So we go in, and everything we do, we're pretty much losing everything. We have some wins here and there, but we lose an awful lot. And so it's a great victory. When we have a victory, it's a big deal. Stony Point, we have to win this fort at Stony Point. So we go in, and General Wayne, Mad Anthony Wayne, he's actually in charge, and he is in the battle. Halfway through the battle, he's shot in the head. And everybody stops and looks at him like, General, you got a hole in your head. And he's like, I know. Just keep fighting. And he doesn't stop. And they're like, we should probably stop. Let's get you to maybe the hospital. No. Give me a bandage. Just put a bandage around my head. Okay. Hole in his head. Puts a bandage around his head. He continues to fight. It's 2:00 in the morning now. We win the battle. And he writes to General George Washington to give him the news. Now, for those of you who are younger than I am, this is the letter to George Washington, which he folded up, and then he sent it to George Washington. So he sends this to George Washington. George Washington reads it, and he writes something to the governor. And so he folds this up and puts it inside of his letter, folds it up, addresses it, and he sends it to the governor. This is the governor's response back. This is early American texting. That's what this is. Okay, I just want to leave you with this one thing, because I think what he wrote at 2:00 in the morning is astounding. He wrote, Dear General, to George Washington, Dear General, the fort and the garrison with Colonel Johnstone are ours. Your officers and men behaved like men who are determined to be free. I read that the first time I saw this letter, and I wondered, what does it mean to live your life as a man determined to be free? We haven't been asked that for a very long time, but we are being asked that question at our 250th anniversary. Will you live your life the way you've lived your life in the past? Working hard, caring, doing just enough. Just enough has not been enough. Our country and our principles are under assault throughout the world. We truly are the last great hope of the earth. Where do people from Cuba run? Where do people from Venezuela run? Where do people who are oppressed all over the world, where do they go? Those in prison all over the world, those who are in prison for reading their Bibles in China, who have professed their belief in God, one God, those in China, where do they look for hope if we are gone? I know a Chinese woman who was in prison who said, "You know, we are praying for the destruction of America." And I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "Wrong word, not destruction. The humbling of America." She said, "Only when you are in strife will you truly remember who you are, and we need America to remember who she is." Let this go forth today. Go home. Tell people what you've seen, what you've experienced, what you know to be true. Do not take our word for this. Look this up for yourself. Make this yours and live your life as a man, a woman, or a child who is determined to be free. Thank you.